Hey guys, this is Kate from Abidable.com, and you're listening to the Abidable Podcast. I'm just a regular wife and mom who's had my life transformed by learning to study the Bible on my own. If I can, you can. On this show, we help you know and love God more by abiding in Him through His Word yourself. Good versus evil. A tale as old as time, literally. Since the garden, every story ever told, at least every story worth telling, has as its main ingredient the battle of good versus evil. I've been learning to use AI to help with some of my content. While I will never, ever, as a matter of conscience, use AI to write my podcast episodes, I may sometimes use it to help me with research. And that's what I did as I was preparing for this episode because I wanted a good list of well-known movie moments where good faced off against evil. Here's what I got. In Harry Potter, we feel the triumph as Harry, once a young boy relegated to a cupboard under the stairs by a cruel aunt and uncle after the death of his parents, faces Voldemort, or He Who Shall Not Be Named. This embodies the ultimate stand against darkness. In Gladiator, Maximus's final fight isn't just against his rival. It's a quest for justice that lifts up his spirit and that of the audience, even to the end. Braveheart has William Wallace roaring for freedom, a cry that echoes through history, inspiring courage against tyranny. In Rocky, we watch the underdog rise, fueled by heart and resilience, proving that true strength isn't just in the fists, but in the spirit. In Lord of the Rings, Frodo and Sam push beyond their limits to destroy the One Ring, shattering Sauron's power and freeing Middle-earth from evil. Star Wars is legendary for the conflict between the good guys and the dark side, with Luke Skywalker facing down the Empire and Darth Vader himself. In The Matrix, Neo's final stand against Agent Smith reveals the power of belief and self-sacrifice as he chooses to save humanity from oppression. And in The Lion King, Simba's climactic battle to reclaim Pride Rock from Scar restores balance and justice to the land, a classic good over evil moment. We love these moments, and Hollywood knows it, because they remind us that even in the toughest battles, the light can prevail. Good can conquer evil. Today, we are studying Isaiah 9, verses 4 and 5, which says, "For the yoke of his burden and the staff for his shoulder, the rod for his oppressor, you have broken as on the day of Midian. For every boot of the tramping warrior in battle tumult and every garment rolled in blood will be burned as fuel for the fire." Here's the big idea for today's episode. We need to know that our God wins, not only at the end of time, but also at the end of today. I'm actually going to walk you through these verses in reverse today. We're going to start with verse 5 and then work backwards to verse 4. I want to use our time in verse 5 to focus on the fact that our God wins at the end of time. And then I want to look at verse 4 to help secure our confidence that God also wins at the end of the day today. I closed out our last episode with the promise that we would get real familiar with the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Perhaps this was unexpected for you, especially if you're doing the study along with me. I know that there was nothing in our word study or our cross-referencing or even our commentary that mentioned the Lion of the tribe of Judah. But I still want to include this image for you, the idea of this Lion of the tribe of Judah, in your mind as we talk about our God being victorious. Upon first observation, verse 5 is a tough one to stomach. It's filled with violent, gruesome imagery. We're talking about tramping warriors, battle tumult, and garments rolled in blood being burned as fuel for the fire. What is Isaiah trying to say here? He's trying to say that the war is over. The battle has been won. Commentator David Guzik says that you would burn these items as fuel for the fire upon complete victory. Quote, "This is what you did when the battle was finished and you had won." There was something incredibly symbolic about this blazing fire. It actually represented a new era of peace. Jamieson, Fawcett, and Brown put it this way in their commentary: "All warlike accoutrements should be destroyed and no longer required in the new era of peace." What is this new era of peace referring to, and what would it look like? This is heaven. This era of peace surpassed Isaiah's time and even surpasses ours. This is a future not yet realized but well described in the Bible. Let me paint the picture for you according to Scripture. These cross-references came from commentary on Isaiah 9:5, so they are directly connected to this verse that we are studying today about battle. Keep that in mind as I share two characteristics of this new era of peace. One, all war will end. Isaiah 2:4 says, "They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore." You don't turn your swords into plowshares and your spears into pruning hooks if you expect to ever have to fight defensively again. You don't stop training future generations in warfare altogether if you want to continue existing as a nation or a people, unless you know that learning how to fight in war will never again be necessary. Can you even comprehend that? This is not speaking of any time except the time to come. Here's another example of what it will be like when war ends. Ezekiel 39:9 says, "Then those who dwell in the cities of Israel will go out and make fires of the weapons and burn them, shields and bucklers, bow and arrows, clubs and spears, and they will make fires of them for 7 years." Now, this is speaking of the end times. This is a future time, a final battle, where all weapons, shields, bucklers, bows, arrows, clubs, and spears will be burned in fires that will last for 7 years. Finally, Psalm 46:9 says this implicitly: "He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the chariots with fire." Wars will permanently end one day, forever. The second characteristic is that all violence, all evil will end. Isaiah 11:6 paints the most beautiful picture of what this will look like. Our minds can't even fathom it. "The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the young goat, and the calf and the lion and the fattened calf together, and a little child shall lead them." Sin and death and violence and war are all the result of the fall. One day, in this new era of peace, all of that will cease forever. Those who dwelt in a land of deep darkness, on them will light shine. They will rejoice before him as he multiplies and increases the nation. Zephaniah, another prophet, predicts what that day will be like in chapter 9, verses 9 through 10. "Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Sing aloud, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. Righteous and having salvation is he, humble and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. I will cut off the chariot from Ephraim and the war horse from Jerusalem, and the battle bow shall be cut off, and he shall speak peace to the nations. His rule shall be from sea to sea, and from the river to the ends of the earth." A king is coming who will usher in this new era of peace. Because of his arrival, the quaking and shaking and chaos of tramping warrior boots will cease forever. Because of his arrival, bloody garments and weapons of war will be burned in the fire. Because of his arrival, war itself will cease forever. Who is this king who will usher in the new era of peace? Well, we're going to look to one of our cross-references for the answer to this question. In your study, you were probably very excited to discover that Micah 5 was a cross-reference mentioned in the commentary for Isaiah 9:5. I'm going to read verses 2 through 5 to you in their entirety. Remember that Micah 2 is a prophet. He actually prophesied at the same time and to the same people as Isaiah. Micah's audience was Judah, and he too predicted specific details about a coming king that would not arrive for 700 years. Here are Micah's words. But you, O Bethlehem Ephratah, who are too little to be among the clans of Judah, from you shall come forth for me one who is to be ruler in Israel, whose coming forth is from of old, from ancient days. Therefore he shall give them up until the time when she who is in labor has given birth. Then the rest of his brothers shall return to the people of Israel. And he shall stand and shepherd his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God. And they shall dwell secure. For now he shall be great to the ends of the earth, and he shall be their peace. Micah predicts that from the clan of Judah, this is really important, someone who is to be ruler in Israel will be born. His birth was written about in ancient days. What is the clan of Judah? Who is Judah? Remember how we talked about the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 clans that were named after the 12 sons of Jacob? If you're not familiar with who Jacob is, he was the son of Isaiah, who was the son of Abraham. And we have talked several times already in this series about Abraham. Remember God's covenantal promise to make Abraham's descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky. God promised that he would bless all nations through Abraham. So now, here in Micah, some 1,200 years after Abraham, we have a prophecy about someone very important coming to Bethlehem, which was in the region of the tribe of Judah. Judah was the fourth son of Jacob, and on Jacob's deathbed, he prayed prayers of blessing over each one of his sons. Do you want to know what he prayed over Judah? This is from Genesis, chapter 49, verses 9 through 10. Judah is a lion's cub. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He stooped down. He crouched as a lion and as a lioness. Who dares rouse him? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until tribute comes to him, and to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. Judah is described as a lion, and a blessing is prayed, saying that the scepter and the ruler's staff will not depart from the tribe of Judah. So now we come to the question, who is the one who will usher in this new era of peace? Jacob's words held true, his prayer of blessing. Many years later, Judah's line produced King David and his dynasty. David held the scepter and the ruler's staff and reigned over all Israel. Was this blessing ultimately about him? No. Eventually, even further down, in Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Judah, and David's line, through the line of Perez, came the Messiah, Jesus Christ, who is called in Revelation 5:5 the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Without getting too far into the complexity of Revelation 5, let me just say this. There was only one in all of heaven and earth and above and below the earth who was found worthy to open the scroll of God. This scroll, most likely representative of God's great covenant promise and plan for his people, was opened by the Lion of the tribe of Judah, Jesus himself. And in his worthiness and through his triumph to open this scroll, he would fulfill God's ultimate plan to the great consolation and joy of all his people. And he will shepherd his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God, as a mighty lion of the tribe of Judah. And because he will be great to the ends of the earth, his people shall dwell secure forever, because he makes wars cease to the ends of the earth and brings them peace, because he is their peace. At the end of time, the Lion of the tribe of Judah triumphs. This is how it ends. The battle is already won. which means that the battle is over. So why in the world does it feel like we're still facing battles every single day? Now we're going to rewind and look at Isaiah 9:4. Thanks for letting me do this in reverse. But first, a short message. Today's message is about gifting Abidable this Christmas. If you love Abidable and have benefited from what we do here, perhaps you should consider praying about who you might share Abidable with in your life. We have our How to Study the Bible course, which is reduced nearly 40% right now. Who do you know who loves the Lord but has expressed a desire to grow in their knowledge of the Bible? What about gifting an Abidable study? Who might benefit from a step-by-step workbook that shows them how to dig deeply into Scripture for themselves? We, of course, have all of our lettered items as well as gift cards. Best of all, consider gifting someone a study Bible. I'll link a blog post with our favorite study Bibles in this episode. Hopefully you'll consider sharing the gift of Abidable with your friends and family this Christmas. We would be honored to be a part of your generosity. I'll link our shop in this episode as well. And now, back to the show. So, the Lion of the tribe of Judah wins. The battle is over. It's already decided. So why does it feel like we're still fighting battles every single day? I reached out to those of you participating in this study alongside me and several of my friends and social media followers. I asked a very simple question. What battle are you facing right now? I didn't want you to talk about battles you've fought in the past. I had a pretty big ask. I wanted you to share something raw and rough that you're facing in the here and now, today, like in this moment. One of you so rightly responded, "Which one do you want me to pick? There are so many battles right now." I know a lot of us can relate to that. Here's what you so graciously shared with me about the battles you are facing right now. Some of you are facing battles with your health. I'm battling with how I can honor the Lord by keeping my body healthy in a culture full of harmful foods that tempt me to compromise my health as I age. I'm in a battle right now over my eyesight. I am battling a health crisis. I know that God is my healer, but that doubt creeps in. Some of you are battling for truth. I'm facing a battle of being patient and letting God provide in His timing, not mine, for our new business. I'm in a battle to make wise choices in daily living, which is very challenging because there is so much deception and so many lies being poured out. I'm struggling with understanding the true love of God as His daughter when my earthly father showed little interest. Some of you are facing financial or time crunch battles. We need a financial miracle in order to stay in our house. We were forced into retirement 2 years earlier than planned, so funds are extremely tight. One of you is headed out of town, and you said you've got a ton to do before you leave. Another one of you said, "My biggest battle right now is just trying to go to the Lord for peace. I feel stretched thin so many days and often choose to put focus on things that aren't Jesus." Similarly, another one of you said, "I'm very much in the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak era, wanting to make time for the Lord, but never seeming to manage it." Some of you have relational battles you're facing. I'm battling waves of grief, especially heading into the holidays. I woke up the other day thinking my dad was still alive, only to realize that isn't the reality, and I couldn't call him or talk to him. Even though these aren't our first holidays without him, this year actually feels harder. I've had to have some difficult conversations lately. As one who would love to avoid conflict at all costs, God is pushing me to do the hard things and trust in Him rather than my people-pleasing tendencies. And several of you specifically mentioned battles you're facing with your children. Often the last year, we feel like it's a battle with our teens. My husband and I struggle to not take the attitudes, behaviors, and disobedience personally and feel like we are failing as parents to them and also failing to keep the younger kids safe from influence. I'm battling letting go of an estranged child. The details are complicated, But our son has been in and out of our lives for the past 20 years, and it's been very hard. God has shown us we need to let go and give him to God. Although we have a deep peace about it, it's still hard. Guys, that's a lot of battles. Hard, heavy stuff. We need to know our God wins, not only at the end of time, but also at the end of today. Isaiah 9:4 says, "For the yoke of his burden and the staff for his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, you have broken as on the day of Midian." Midian. This is the key here in this verse. Did you dig into the story of the battle at Midian? Maybe if you know your Bible really well, you were already familiar with this reference. But for most of us, Midian doesn't carry any special significance upon first inspection. For an Israelite, hearing Isaiah's words, however, they would have known exactly what the reference to Midian meant. Just as if you heard someone reference the Battle of Gettysburg, or if they mentioned some other U.S. location heavily associated with strife, like Selma, Ferguson, or Wounded Knee. Midian. What happened at Midian? Israel had taken possession of the Promised Land. They again turned their back on God and did what was evil in his sight. For a period of 7 years, he removed his protection from them, and they suffered greatly under the Midianites and the Amalekites, neighboring people groups. Judges 6 says that whenever the Israelites planted crops, the Midianites and the Amalekites and the people of the east would come up against them and devour the produce of the land as far as Gaza, and leave no sustenance in Israel, and no sheep or ox or donkey. For they would come up with their livestock and their tents, and they would come like locusts in number, so that they laid waste the land as they came in. And Israel was brought very low because of Midian, and the people of Israel cried out for help to the Lord. Have you ever been brought very low because of a battle you're in? Some of you, as you just shared, are there right now. And the people of Israel cried out to God. And what did God do? Using Gideon, the 5th judge or leader of Israel, God demonstrated his ability to achieve impossible victory on behalf of his people. Initially, Gideon gathered 32,000 men in his army. However, God forced Gideon to reduce the army first to 10,000 men and then to just 300. They would be going up against an army of approximately 135,000. In so doing, God ensured that Israel and the nations around them would know who had delivered them in battle. He wanted there to be no question in their mind. So with a meager 300 men up against an army as numerous as locusts, Gideon and his men used trumpets, jars, and torches and circled around the Midianite army in the dark. This threw them into total confusion, and they fled. Gideon and his men chased them until they finally captured the leaders of the Midianite army. An unbelievable win. So when Isaiah says, "as at Midian," he is reminding them of a time and a place when Israel achieved an impossible victory because of the power of their God. You've faced battles before, and you're facing them now. Just as saying Midian or Gettysburg carries baggage with it, so do certain words, phrases, places, names, and seasons in your life. As on the day of Midian, as on the day you were let go, as on the day you lost your home, as on the day you received the diagnosis, as on the day you buried your child, as on the day he left you. What did God do then? What impossible victories has he brought you through in the past that you are forgetting as you face today's battle? Are you still standing? Who was he to you then? Who has he been to you since then? He has shattered the yoke of your burden and the staff for your shoulder and the rod of your oppressor. With the fierceness of a lion, he comes to your defense to deliver you from your enemies. yoke of your burden, a heavy load as imposed on the neck, staff for your shoulder, a rod, shaft, or branch used for correcting or throwing, rod of your oppressor, a stick for punishing, fighting, ruling. This is the language of slavery and bondage. This addresses the very real daily oppression Israel was under. Who would come for them? Who would shatter the yoke, the staff, and the rod of their oppressor? As exiles still living here on earth, we still face very real daily oppression. Who will come for us? Who will shatter our yoke, our staff, our rod? I asked AI to summarize the story of Harriet Tubman for me. Here's what was shared. Harriet Tubman was an extraordinary figure in the fight against slavery. Born into slavery herself in Maryland, she escaped to freedom in 1849, but was determined to help others still in bondage. Tubman became a key conductor on the Underground Railroad, risking her life repeatedly by returning to the South more than a dozen times to guide about 70 enslaved people, including family and friends, to freedom. Her courage and resourcefulness earned her the name Moses among those she helped liberate. Tubman used her deep faith, clever tactics, and knowledge of secret routes to outwit slave catchers, embodying relentless bravery and resilience in her quest to end slavery. Moses, the liberator of his people, just like Harriet Tubman, just like Gideon, Moses would see the bondage of his people and go back to lead them out of slavery in Egypt and into the Promised Land. But one day, a greater Moses would come, and this Moses, seeing the bondage of his people, would one day return to stand and shepherd his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God. And because of his arrival, his people would dwell secure, and he would be their peace. He would be their promised land. We need to know our God wins, not just at the end of time, but at the end of today. How do you do that? By remembering him, by remembering what he has done all throughout history as revealed in his word, by looking back at your own life and preaching to yourself about his goodness and his faithfulness and his provision and his presence and his protection. He has seen the yoke of your burden. He knows about the staff crushing your shoulders. He has heard your cries under the rod of your oppressor. He is not indifferent. He has already answered you by giving you the greatest gift he could ever give. As Gideon with a handful of men conquered the host of Midian, so the Messiah, the child, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, shall prove to be the Prince of Peace and usher in a new era of peace. I want to close with this testimony from my sweet friend about the battles she's faced this last year alone. In a way, all of 2024 has felt like a battle, and I don't say that lightly. Over the last couple of years, I've learned that I feel very uncomfortable complaining about my circumstances because it feels like I'm an entitled brat when I do. But this year started with a possible cancer diagnosis. Scan after scan and test after test. It's still not resolved, and we're still waiting for answers. Our lives have kind of been up in the air for a long while now, and it will continue to be for the foreseeable future. But you know what? I look back and see how well the Lord has loved me, mending me in with his word, reaching out in love through friends, a thoughtful deed from one of my kids, the acknowledgement of hard by my husband. I can grieve my hard, and the Lord isn't sidelined by it or side-eyeing me in it. I have lived in the goodness of God, and I will continue to, battle through battle. 2 Corinthians 4, 7-9, one of our cross references, says, "But we have this treasure in jars of clay, to show that the surpassing power belongs to God and not to us. We are afflicted in every way, but not crushed, perplexed, but not driven to despair, persecuted, but not forsaken, struck down, but not destroyed. Because our God wins at the end of time, He absolutely wins at the end of today. That's it for this episode. Go ahead and begin working on pages 36 to 39 in your study workbook for Isaiah 9:6. Ideally, you would have these sections done before next week's episode, number 26, titled Given. This episode will cover Isaiah 9:6. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. This is our key verse and what we've been working toward all along. I can't wait to share this episode with you. We're getting so close to Christmas. Can you feel it? I'm going to close us out in prayer and do our verse memory work together for Isaiah 9:4-5. But first, would you consider sharing the Abidable podcast with one person this week? Help us spread the word so we can make much of the word. If you haven't already, take a few minutes at the end of this episode to write us a review. And finally, only if you're able, please consider becoming an Abidable podcast partner for as little as $3 a month. Your support truly blesses us as we create this content. It's super easy to sign up. You can cancel at any time, and all of our monthly subscribers are entered in our free study giveaway that we do each month. I'll link the details in this episode. Let's pray. Jesus, you are our triumphant lion, hailing from the tribe of Judah. As promised, the scepter and the staff have not departed from the tribe of Judah or the house of David. You are the long-awaited, promised Ancient of Days who shatters the yoke of our burden, the staff for our shoulders, and the rod of our oppressors as on the day of Midian. Thank you for coming for us and for setting us free. You are as victorious today as you were on the cross, and as victorious as you will be at the end of time. One day, because of you, all weapons of war will be destroyed, and wars will cease to the ends of the earth. We need that reminder today as we face the many battles before us. Thank you that you are not sidelined by our grief or our struggles or our doubts, and that you don't side-eye us when we forget who you are and all that you've done, not only in our personal lives, but throughout all time. This is why we need your word. Help us to be a people who remembers, and help us to do that by abiding in you. We don't want to forget. We want to continue to live in your goodness, battle by battle, day by day, until the day your peace reigns perfectly forever. Amen. Let's close by doing our memory work together. I'll repeat Isaiah 9:4-5 5 times. Yes, I'm going to do it 5 times because that's how committed I am to your memory work. Say it out loud with me or quietly to yourself. For the yoke of his burden and the staff for his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, you have broken as on the day of Midian. For every boot of the tramping warrior in battle tumult, and every garment rolled in blood will be burned as fuel for the fire. For the yoke of his burden and the staff for his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, you have broken as on the day of Midian. For every boot of the tramping warrior in battle tumult, and every garment rolled in blood will be burned as fuel for the fire. For the yoke of his burden and the staff for his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, you have broken as on the day of Midian. For every boot of the tramping warrior in battle tumult, and every garment rolled in blood will be burned as fuel for the fire. For the yoke of his burden and the staff for his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, you have broken as on the day of Midian. For every boot of the tramping warrior in battle tumult and every garment rolled in blood will be burned as fuel for the fire. For the yoke of his burden and the staff for his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, you have broken as on the day of Midian. For every boot of the tramping warrior in battle tumult and every garment rolled in blood will be burned as fuel for the fire. Isaiah 9, 4-5. All right, friends, enjoy digging into verse 6, and remember, you are able to abide in the Bible. We'll see you next time. Until then, let's abide.